All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm showing 10:30 by my clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Matt Schulich. I am the Virtual Experience Coordinator for the Ohio History Connection, and will be serving as the host for this morning's session. Just a couple of quick logistical things before we get started. If at any point during the presentation you have comments that you want to share with your fellow attendees, or there's a resource that you want to share, you can put that in the chat and just make sure you have all panelists and attendees selected when you drop that message in. If you have a question, we're going to ask that you click that Q&A toolbar at on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. Put your question in there, and we will respond to questions as the opportunity allows. The majority of those questions we'll save for the end. We'll try to get in as many questions as we can. If we don't get to your question, we may combine it with another question or something along those lines. So at this point, I am going to turn things over to our presenter, and Bill can take it away whenever he's ready to get started. And you're all set, Bill.
Okay, well, hello. I don't know if there's Becky. Hello, Becky. Well, my name is Bill Barrow. I'm head of special collections at Cleveland State University Library, and I'm co-presenting here with Becky Sparangowski, who's a volunteer working with the project that we're talking about here today, which is Ohio's Outdoor Sculpture, a statewide platform for collaboration. The whole idea of OOSI, as we call it, or now I guess we're now calling it OOS, I'll get to that later, but is to provide a platform statewide for people in historical societies, local history societies, art societies to collaborate around the preservation of the outdoor sculptures in their areas. Slide, please. So I am, as I say, the head of special collections at Cleveland State University. I'll have Becky introduce herself a little bit further at the end when she gets to her part of the talk. Where at Cleveland State, I run local history resources for the university. So our main way of presenting those is through the Cleveland Memory Project up online. I'm also head of the early settlers of the Western Reserve, another historical group that is of interest in Northeast Ohio. Slide, please. Slide. Okay. In my capacity with the Cleveland Memory Project, a 70,000 item online resource to Northeast Ohio history, I got interested in the possibility of finding information on local sculptures for the Cleveland Memory Project. And I went online and I came up with this old slide, old screen for the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture Inventory. It froze my computer, corrupted the whole thing, and crashed it. So I thought, well, this isn't good, and tracked down where this was hosted, and it was at the Sculpture Center here in Cleveland. Contacting the director of it, I found out, yes, they had problems with it. So we brought it in-house at Cleveland State through the help of a couple art people, and reissued it. Slide, please. Slide. Am I supposed to be doing this? Okay, there we go. And this is the current Sculpture Center slide. And it's basically the Sculpture Center is about helping mid-careers and emerging sculptors get their feet under them with their careers, to give exhibits and get training. But as a sideline, sort of, to that effort, the Sculpture Center also runs the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture Inventory. Slide, please. This is the current OOSI page. I call it OOSI because that's what Ohio Outdoor Sculpture Inventory was the original name. We dropped inventory, and I've got to retrain myself to stop calling it OOSI. But anyway, it's Ohio Outdoor Sculpture. This is the current page for that. And I'll go through this a little bit with you. Slide, please. Up at the top here, there are a number of selections. About, obviously, would be a good place to start. So let's start there with the about slide. It just basically tells us that there's some 1,500 items in here from around the state, various kinds of things that we consider outdoor sculpture. Get into that in a minute. And offers that you can submit things. Go ahead, next one. The Ohio Outdoor Sculpture started off with something called Save Outdoor Sculpture, which was a federal project to try and conserve the nation's outdoor sculpture. There was a committee called the Conservation Committee that took on that role for Ohio in the 1990s, and it later merged with the Sculpture Center, which is how the Sculpture Center ended up in this business. Then after we discovered that the program was crashed, it got taken into Cleveland State, reworked a little bit to make it more palatable, but then eventually it ended up on a sculpture website database called OMECA. And OMECA was run out of the Center for Public History and Digital Humanities at the History Department of Cleveland State. And that is the platform we're now using to generate all the records for the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture. Slide. And then, as I say, we've been looking for partners and volunteers. There have been a number of practicum students from Kent, several who have done their practicums. It was kind of handy because somebody downstate in Ohio was having a problem trying to find a practicum site for her library school practicum, and we ended up doing it this way through the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture. So it lends itself very well to remote partnerships. As Becky and I have found out, we've been working on this remotely, and we've never met face-to-face in all the time we've been doing that. Okay, slide, please. Okay, so the heart of the whole thing are sculptures. Slide. And sculptures come in a number of fashions. One is abstract works. Slide, please. This is a particularly large example of one. Slide. This is on the campus of the university hospitals in Cleveland. A lot of my examples are from Cleveland because I know a little about them. And some of them are better pictures because I've taken them more recently. Slide. This is kind of a nice one at the Transit Center in Cleveland. On the right, you can see that there's a number of panels with cutouts in them, and when you walk around to one end and look through it, you get the view on the left, which is Stephanie Tubbs Jones, a local prosecutor turned congressperson who died tragically. But anyway, I always thought this was kind of an interesting sculpture, the way it was laid out. You know, looking at it from the side, it doesn't look like much of anything. Slide. And then who knows what these are? The one on the left, is it a sculpture? We don't know. I suppose it was. It doesn't look like it could be much of anything else. But some of the things that show up out on the public spaces of Ohio, you're never quite sure what the intent was. On the right, I can pretty well assure that that was a sculpture. It's just up the street from the West 78th Street Studios in Cleveland. So somebody there made it, and I'm sorry, I should know more about it. It's just interesting looking. Slide. Scattered around the state, if nothing else, there are often statues of, yeah, there we go, that's fine, of what I would call hometown heroes. On the left is Annie Oakley, and on the right is Thomas Edison as a young boy and with his mother. And there's undoubtedly other examples around, but slide. And the sculptures that are up on walls, slide, please. There's one example on a school here in Cleveland, slide. And Johnny Appleseed in Lakewood. This is a Victor Schreckengast item. You'll notice some of these are in black and white. These are shots that were taken back when the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture was originally started, and one of our tasks is to go back around and reshoot these. So we've been having to tag these, as Becky will discuss, for reshooting so that we can call them all up and go find out what needs a better up-to-date picture. So the black and white ones are the older ones. Slide, please. And then there's war memorials all around the state. If there's nothing else, slide, please. All around the state, if nothing else, there are memorials to either soldiers that fell in the Civil War or in World War I, or just in the war sense as general veterans areas. These are both Civil War figures. Slide. And there's another one. This is a street view shot. Some of the neighborhoods around the state that have these kinds of things, I haven't been to myself, and we haven't a partner in the area, so they've been captured on street view. This one isn't too bad. At least it tells you where it is and what the environment looks like. Some of them are too deep into a park or something where the street view doesn't really reach well enough. Slide. This is the doughboy. There are a number of World War I doughboy statues around, and there's one particular series that has a national following. And I spoke to the people running the national program of identifying these, and he says we in Ohio probably have the most of this particular run of doughboy statues to be found anywhere in the country. So if nothing else, I would imagine somewhere in the counties that do not have any record in Uzi, we could probably find a Civil War or World War I or general veterans statue of some sort of memorial. Slide. Slide, please. And then there's things that aren't really sculptures, probably by anybody's definition. But this is the Vizcaya cannon, which was taken off of a Spanish battleship during the Spanish-American War. It follows war booty. And these kinds of things tended to be distributed around the landscape. Now, it isn't a sculpture, but clearly it's no longer being used as a cannon. So what is its role in the community? Is it meant to be, we won, you didn't, kind of a front, or is it just sort of memorializing as a sculpture would that there's a statue, that there's a cultural event that we're commemorating? So we've tended to put these in, even though they aren't outdoor sculpture as such, just because people out looking at outdoor sculpture are going to encounter them and probably wonder, well, what's that thing? Now, in this case, it's clear that it was a cannon, but there are other things that aren't so much, like the next slide, please. On the left is a piece off the USS Maine that blew up in Havana Harbor and started the war. Again, when the powers that be decided we needed to memorialize, remember the Maine, if you remember that expression, pieces of the Maine have been distributed all over the country, and ours is up in Metro Parks, up in Washington Heights. Not too much to see, but I guess we can only carve the boat up so many ways. Slide, please. So both of those are, I would consider to be cultural objects. This is a peace garden at university hospitals put up basically for cancer patients to wander around and feel restful as they're going through treatment. And again, it's a designed object. It's outdoors, it's designed, and if it's not a sculpture, it certainly qualifies as some sort of a cultural object that we like to tell people about. Slide. The purpose of Uzi, Ohio Outdoor Sculpture, is conservation ultimately, and we haven't done much with it yet. We've been mostly trying to just record what's out there. But here's an example. This is the Man's Quest piece on the wall of the science building at Cleveland State. When it was put up in 1961, it was very bright and well done by Barrow Enamel Company of Cleveland, who was celebrating their 50th anniversary at that point. They just celebrated their 100th last year, and I'd love to see them come back and clean it up. But at this point, everything is faded. There's bird droppings all over it, and there's actually birds' nests built into it. I suppose they power wash those out every now and then, but this is the problem. You know, too many of the pieces that are out in the landscape around the state have never had any kind of a conservation budget. So as a consequence, things just fade over time and pieces fall off them and they get toppled and sort of stuck back up again. And in any event, they're just not a credit to the money that was put into building and erecting them in the first place. And so the SOS program and now the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture program is designed to try and identify them and what their needs are and work with the people in the area to try and find conservation grants that could perhaps bring them back up to some sort of respectable look now. Slide, please. Slide. There's also some controversies, of course, involving sculpture right now, especially. Slide, please. We've been seeing a lot with Civil War Confederate statues. These are two Confederate statues in Ohio. The one on the left has been taken down at a cemetery in Columbus. The one on the right is up at the old Confederate statue, up cemetery rather, up in Sandusky Bay. Certainly these are not Stonewall Jackson on his horse in the public square in everybody's face. They are rather Confederate soldiers standing watch over their comrade buried in the lawn. So I don't really know how that fits into the general narrative of anti-Confederatism, which I share. But anyway, moving on. Then we have Christopher Columbus. The one on the left is in Columbus, and I believe it's coming down if it hasn't already. The one on the right is in Little Italy. You can imagine the Italians of Cleveland are great fans of Christopher Columbus. There's been talk of replacing this statue with one of Chef Boyardee. So if we were going to get rid of a national figure of interest for Italian Americans, maybe we could replace him with a hometown Italian American who made it big. Slide, please. We have Native American portrayals. I kind of like the one on the left. This is a slide of the statue of at the carrying place. The connection between the Great Lake water system and the Ohio-Mississippi water system is a portage up over a watershed connecting, portage connects the upper reaches of the Cuyahoga with the upper reaches of the Muskingum Tuscarora system. And that portage ended up being Akron and the Ohio and Erie Canal. So this is a very timely statue for understanding how this part of Ohio grew based on the availability of the portage. The one on the right is one of a series that were done by an artist working in wood, and just another view of Native Americans on the landscape. Slide, please. This is the politician, a toy. It has been in two other locations. Well, this is the second location. It's not in this location anymore. The white sign kind of around the top of the fence there was changed periodically, and finally its location here was taken away from it. I was on the campus of Cleveland State and decided that the artists in Cleveland State just couldn't come to agreement about all of this, so they asked them to remove it. I should say we asked them to remove it, although I had nothing to do with it. So it's now, I understand, at his studio waiting for some third home, maybe someday. The wheels go around, and it's quite a sight. Slide, please. And then there's the free stamp, which is a big favorite in Cleveland. It was originally designed to go in front of the then Ohio building on Public Square, later BP and now Huntington building, changed its ownership several times, but Ohio decided, or BP decided, they didn't want it. So it never got installed there and got installed in Voinovich Park over by City Hall, where it becomes kind of a rallying point for a lot of demonstrations and people climb up on it. Anyway, slide, please. This is over on the upper right there, I've got it circled for the search. You can search all of these 1,500 works from this box slide. If you click on that little plus, you get this drop down, and you can click on advanced search. Slide, please. And then you can go and search by keywords and specific fields and all the various ways that advanced search can be done. Slide, please. Then we also have mapped these. We have about 2/3 of the 1,500 mapped now, about 1,000. Slide, please. And they show up in this fashion. Little pins, you can zoom in on it. You notice down in the lower right corner of this slide, there's one that I clicked on that says Memorial to the Start Westward. Slide, please. So if you clicked on one of these red things, you would go to the record for the Memorial to the Slide Westward, or whichever one you picked, where you would see that the date was 1938. They don't know who the creator was. I find that surprising. And it's in Marietta, Ohio. And you can tell from the black and white picture that this hasn't been updated. So that's something that I would hope a partner in Marietta could do someday, would be to give us a better picture and find out who actually created this and do a couple other things and then tell us what the condition was. Next slide, please. The distribution. I went through county by county to see how many records each county had, and the ones that had none at all are in red. So you can see that there's a prevalence of larger city representation: Cincinnati down in the corner, Columbus in the middle, and the Toledo, Cleveland, Youngstown area, Akron across the top. So this big F shape from upper left to lower right indicates there's a lot of smaller counties that either don't have something or nobody got around to doing an inventory to see what they might have. I've thought about taking a cruise down the Ohio and Erie Canal towpath trail and back and kind of get a lot of these on the lower right, but I haven't done so. There is actually currently an intern from the history department of Cleveland State working on some of these right in dead center, so we may take some of the red off some of these. But anyway, this just shows the areas where we don't know enough and would really welcome having somebody around that could tell us what there is. Slide, please. And then we have tours, and there are a couple of examples. Slide, please. One is the slide function within Ohio's Outdoor Sculpture. There's 18 of them, and basically anybody, well, not the public, but any of us working on this could create, or partners could create a tour. I did one for the Cleveland State campus in the upper left there. Slide, please. And basically, I just went around the campus to see how this would work, and you can click on any of those green buttons and call up the record for that. I don't think I did that here, but one of them, which is now at the far right edge of the screen, used to be closer into the cluster, and that was the politician, the toy. It's on the tour too. I should probably take it off. Slide. Well, this is what you would see below the map, would be just the different elements of it: inner space, growth of potential, Adam Smith spinning top, and the rest of them that are on the Cleveland State campus, including politician or toy. Slide, please. The Sculpture Center also, apart from the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture, has been reaching out to people in Columbus and Cincinnati who have curated tours there. This is the one for Cincinnati. And it's not an Uzi tour, but it's just another one that the Sculpture Center has. I thought I'd throw in a little mention of it. Slide, please. So we do all of this work in something called the dashboard. Slide, please, where we can go in and start a new item and then populate it with all the pieces. Slide, please. We have Dublin core and item type metadata, which are just two ways of dividing up the descriptive information for these, like in the case of this one, you can see title, description, creator, and so forth down the list. These are the Dublin core ones. Don't worry about it. It's a librarian thing. And then item metadata type also. It tells what county, what city, what date, who built it, and all that. And then files up at the top there. Files is where we would put the photographs in for this. Tags, Becky will tell us about. And then map is where we located on the map that you saw earlier. Slide. And then submit. There is a function for submitting slide, please. There is a function for submitting slides to us. We have a criteria here, which is a little higher minded than I've been doing. The original intent was to actually have legitimate artistic outdoor sculpture. And as you can tell, I've been including cultural objects and a few other things that I think are relevant to the process of understanding the public space and the works that are out there, even if they aren't strictly speaking sculptures from the beginning, from the get-go. But nevertheless, this is the submission process for individuals who just want to do something. Slide, please. So the process of partnering with us, our role is to identify work in Ohio and do work on their conservation. Slide. We're seeking partnering librarian organizations, historical societies, and individual volunteers interested in representing their part of the state in the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture Inventory. Slide. And interested parties should contact me at my Yahoo address, bill.barrow Yahoo. And I thank you for listening. I'm going to now turn this over to Becky Sparagowski, who will finish off talking a little bit about the tag cloud. Becky?
Okay, well, thank you for that, Bill. As Bill said, my name is Becky Sparagowski, and I've been working with metadata in a couple different areas. My real area of expertise is in special collections, but this seemed like a good project to get involved in. And so I've been tasked with, as you can see here, cleaning up the tag cloud on the OMECA site. So if we could move on to the next slide, please. We have a project going right now that's with myself, Bill, and a couple other people that we've been bringing in to make sure that we have metadata standards in place. And this project has two main tasks that we're tackling. The first one is to create an actual tagging system. So back in February, when we started this, the tag cloud in the OMECA site was a little bit haphazard. It had been done by volunteers, great volunteers, over the course of time, and it hadn't been done to an actual standard. So what my job here is creating a tagging system that we can continue to use over time and that volunteers can work within to create a useful navigable site that meets metadata standards. The second task that we're doing is fleshing out the item level descriptions. So we'll see a little bit later some of the examples of what I'm working with here. But some of our items don't have very robust descriptions. Volunteers were able to get photographs and all of the background information to fit into Dublin Core on certain sculptures, but weren't necessarily able to find information to flesh out the description. So we're working on doing that at the same time. And the goal of these two tasks is twofold. It's to create a database of the outdoor sculpture and its information that is digitally sustainable. And what I mean by that is that every time OMECA updates its software, all of the information will transfer to that new update. And that future volunteers also will be able to input information in a way that is going to translate with every update and be uniform across the site, so that people who come to the site to look for information they know what they're looking at when they get there. The second goal is, again, to make it easier to access and navigate for users. The tagging is another way of searching the site. So you can search by location, you can search by the title, you can search by the creator of the sculpture, but the tags create something a little bit different. Okay, so can we move to the next slide? I quite like working with Omeka. I don't know how many other people have worked with Omeka here, but I find that it's quite user-friendly, and especially as far as tagging is concerned. All of the tags are on one page, and the editor can do everything they need to do from that one page in the dashboard, which is really quite convenient for me. So on the next slide, we see the tag cloud. This is what it looks like in the dashboard. So every one of these green bars is a tag that we are using on the site. The little number on the left is how many records make use of that tag on our database. So my first task when we started back in February was to go through this tag cloud looking for duplicates. For example, we had one tag for horse and one tag for horses. And so I consolidated those so that we didn't have multiple tags for the same thing. The other was to go through and look for any tags that were not actually being used. So for example, in the lower right of the screen, you can see one that's belief, with 0 records attached to it. If there are no records attached to that tag, obviously that tag is not doing any good. It's just cluttering up our site, so we delete those. I've also been going through and assessing some of these tags that have 1 and 2 items, making use of them, to see if we really need that tag, if that's a useful way to search for that record. I don't have a screenshot of this, but users to the website can see the tag cloud on the front end. So that's another way that viewers can search the site. They can go through and look at the tags and say, oh, that looks interesting. I'm going to click on that and see all of the item records with that tag. Also with the search function that Bill showed earlier, you can decide, I want to see all of the sculptures that have people in them, and just type that into the search bar, and if it has a tag that says people, it'll come up. Okay, so that's the goal here. I have also been standardizing the language in the tags. So I've applied a controlled vocabulary to this. I've been using the Getty Art and Architecture thesaurus for controlled vocabulary. And again, that's just another way of standardizing the information that we have across the site so that users know what they're looking for and that it updates every time Omeka updates, and that information is stable every time Omeka updates. If we go to the next slide, you can see just how easy it is to edit this tag cloud from the dashboard of Omeka. In the bottom right, you can see how you edit the tag name. You just click on that little bar. It comes up with a cursor that you can use to type. Hit enter and it saves the information for you. So as you're going through, this has happened more than once to me, and you notice a typo in your tag, you can just edit it right from here. You don't have to go to each item and correct the tag in each item, which is very convenient from a metadata professional point of view. On the left, you can see the delete tag function, which I used multiple times. So you just click on the little X on the right-hand side, it pops up with this window, and it's easy to get rid of tags that aren't being used or aren't serving the greater purpose of the site. Next slide. Now, as for each record, so that was the tag cloud that is applied to the whole database. Now we're going item by item, and Bill thought I was a little bit crazy when I proposed this. Most institutions don't dedicate this many man hours to going item by item through a database with over 1,500 items. But I thought it was a good way to make sure that our website did what we wanted it to do. So I'm going through item by item. I'm making sure that all the appropriate tags are applied to each item. Okay, and in future slides, you'll see what I mean here. I'm doing a bit of research on sculptures that have rather sparse descriptions and trying to flesh out that description. I don't know about anybody else, but I find it incredibly frustrating when I'm looking for information on something and the first site that pops up on Google has a picture but no information. So I'm trying to make sure that all of the item records that I come across have as much information that I can find on that item. And then the last thing that I'm doing in my little workflow here is ensuring that all of our terminology is uniform across the site. And again, you'll see what I mean when we get to the next slide here. So here is one of our records, again from the dashboard point of view. And you can see up at the top, it's got pictures. We have the Dublin core information, we have the title, we have the creator, we have where it's located, but very little else. So on the right-hand side, you can see there are no tags listed. The tags on Omeka's dashboard would be listed between collection and file metadata squares there. So there would be a little box labeled tags with all of the tags applied to that record. So you can see here that there are no tags. So in order to search for this statue or in order for this sculpture to come up in a search, you would need to type in any of the information that is here on the left. Okay, if somebody wanted to see all of the sculpture, bust style sculptures in our database and they typed bust into the search bar, this item would not come up because it is not tagged as being a bust and it doesn't have an item description. Okay, so visitors to the site don't learn who Father Rocco Petrarca was or why he was special enough to get a statue to him in Columbus. Okay, and that's something that we want to rectify in this project. Also, you'll notice down here in location state that Ohio is abbreviated with its postal code. Okay, just keep that in your mind for a second. Let's go to the next slide. This is a different item record that we have. You'll notice there are no photographs. Okay, so we do have volunteers going out and photographing different sculptures, but nobody's quite gotten to Neil Armstrong just yet. This record, so you can see down here on the right, it has tags. It has quite a few tags, okay? It has a robust item description, okay? But again, no photographs. And down here, location state, Ohio is spelled out. So the problem with having some records having the postal code and some records having the full name of the state spelled out is that it's not uniform across the site, and if the site updates, it might not recognize it as being the same type of information. So it might seem really nitpicky and really, really specific here, but I am going through and making sure all of that Ohio is spelled out on all of the records. I would also like to point out here that down here in the tags, you'll notice the bottom two. One is no image, one is reshoot. Those are things that we're doing internally so that volunteers can go through and find all of the images, or all of the records, excuse me, that don't have images and that need photographs to be taken. So this is kind of our way of tracking internally where we can improve our information and our metadata. Okay. So this is all the back end of the site. You can go out to the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture site and see some of the front end and see how nice it looks when we get all of this complete and fleshed out. And that's really an overview of our tagging project here. And with that, I have finished. Bill, do you have anything to add to our current project?
I'm unmuted. No, except I'm impressed. You know, I've been working with Becky now for some number of months on this and another project. We've not actually had a chance to sit down and talk. So I've enjoyed this presentation quite a bit. Thank you very much. And I would enjoy very much working with anybody around the state who wanted to pick up some piece of this, taking photographs or researching sculptures or just pointing them out to us so we know they even exist. So let's say bill.barrow@yahoo.com would be a good way to get a hold of me, and we can kind of talk about that a little bit further. And I appreciate very much Amy and Betsy and Matt and everybody for making this opportunity available to us to talk about the Ohio Outdoor Sculpture Inventory, or Ohio Outdoor Sculpture. And thank you. Thank you very much, and enjoy the conference, everybody.
Bill and Becky,
If you have any questions.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for the presentation. Thank you, Matt, because I had a little trouble. But if anyone has any information or would like to ask any questions, you're welcome to do so. Also, the presentation will be available in a couple of weeks afterwards. If you'd like to go back and review it, it has been recorded.
Can I show that to the director of the Sculpture Center? She'd probably like to watch it.
I think that would be great. Actually, it's a good idea.
Yeah,
It was an
okay.
interesting presentation. Thank you again so much. And I'm not seeing any
thank
questions,
you.
so thank you.
Yeah, we'll stay on for about another minute in case you guys need time to type in a question or whatnot. If there aren't any questions, definitely take advantage of the gift of 20 extra minutes. And I believe our next scheduled session is at 12:30, the vendor lunch and business meeting, and that'll be taking place on our Zoom meeting platform. So like I said, we'll hang around here for about another minute or two. Otherwise, we will see you guys at 12:30.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of standardization to be done there. Just that whole Ohio OH business.